Good evening and welcome to this week's episode of the Cinema Corner. I'm your host, Alec Friedman. It's going to be a bit of a different show this week than it was last week. I sort of jumped the gun last week on some new releases. Spider-Man, Far From Home, and Midsummer were, I guess, technically releases for last week. But they came out on Tuesday, so I saw them before I recorded and released it. So there weren't really new film releases, at least in theaters this week, for me to review. So instead, I'm going to be reviewing Aziz Ansari's new Netflix special right now. I'll also be doing a new segment called Alec's Never Seen, where I will be reviewing a classic movie that I've never seen before. And I'll be doing another underrated segment. I'll also be giving headlines like I did last week. I'm pretty excited about the stuff I have to talk about this week. It should be a pretty good show, so stay tuned. In headlines, some pretty exciting news. Sam Raimi teased that there's potentially more Evil Dead with Bruce Campbell, which I thought he said he retired from the role. Maybe I misheard that, or maybe he changed his mind. If this is like an actual thing, I'm beyond excited about this. I love the Evil Dead films. Ash vs. the Evil Dead was unjustly canceled after 3 seasons. And Sam is just the best, really. I love Sam Raimi. I've been a big fan of his my whole life. I'd love to see what he has to do creatively. Actually, one of his films is my underrated film for this week, so I'm really excited to talk about that. You'll see what it is later in the show. But yeah, if there's new Evil Dead, I'm there. I can't wait. I hope it's a real thing. I hope it's not just like a little tease. But if Sam's saying it and Bruce is saying it, I mean, who knows? Maybe there'll be more. I mean, I think Sam is a producer on the new movie Crawl, so I'm definitely intrigued to see that next week just because Sam Raimi is attached to it. So, yeah, if he's doing a new Evil Dead with Bruce Campbell, sign me up right now. Also in news, some Spider-Man news. There's an article that just came out that if Spider-Man Far From Home fails to reach $1 billion, the rights will go back to Sony. Which is kind of a weird deal. I think it'll definitely reach $1 billion. It's already at like $600 million. So it's probably a non-factor at this point. I also read that there was a cut scene of Peter selling his Star Wars toys in order to be able to pay for the trip that he went on in the film. And I just it bothers me that stuff like that is cut. Because that's like quintessential Spider-Man and Peter Parker right there. And I think a lot of people would have liked to see that in the film for character and narrative standpoint. But then it also turns out that I read this report somewhere on Twitter, I think. I'm not 100% sure how accurate this is. I'm pretty sure it's the real deal, though. Apparently there's a Sony stipulation in the Spider-Man deal that all the characters that Marvel use, they can't be like exactly as their comic book counterparts are. That's why Ned and Betty and May and MJ and even Peter are so different from their comic book counterparts that for some reason Sony won't let them do it accurately. I don't really know why, but if that's the case, that's just a disappointing thing for me because these are such great, iconic, classic characters. And if they're really not allowed to make a film with the characters and their natural interpretations and have to be forced to change it and cut scenes like Peter selling his toys to go on vacation, I mean, I don't even know what the point is. That's pretty disappointing for me, but I guess we'll see where they continue to go with that. Maybe things will change or it's exaggerated. I'm not sure. Continuing, the John Turturro Big Lebowski spinoff about his character, the Jesus, is going to be hitting theaters early next year. It's going to be called The Jesus Rolls, kind of a funny title. I'm a huge fan of the Big Lebowski. The parts with Jesus in the movie are some of my favorite. They're really, really funny. But I don't know why this is a movie that's being made. I know the Coen brothers have zero involvement here, which is kind of a disappointment. I mean, John Turturro kills it in the role, but I guess we'll have to see what he can do from a filmmaking standpoint. The cast is kind of weird. John Hamm is in it. Pete Davidson. I don't know. It seems kind of silly to me. I don't really know why they're doing this. Like I said, I guess we'll have to wait and see for some trailers, maybe a poster or something, get a little sense of where they're going with this. But I can't say I'm over the moon excited about this, but I'm definitely intrigued. I love the character, and I like John Turturro, so I guess we'll see where they go with this. Lastly, I would just like to honor the life and passing of Rip Torn, Hollywood veteran for sure. It's sad to see him go. I believe he was 88 years old. He's played a lot of iconic roles and characters. My personal favorite is Patches O'Houlihan in Dodgeball. He seemed like a really cool guy. He's got an awesome name, Rip Torn. I mean, how cool is that? It's sad, but I'm sure he lived a nice life. He played a lot of iconic roles and meant a lot to a lot of people. So thank you, Rip Torn, for all your years of service and great films. And rest in peace. My condolences to his family and friends. Okay, for new releases, I'm going to be talking about Aziz Ansari's new Netflix comedy special titled Aziz Ansari Right Now. A little context, I've been a big fan of his for years, since he first, came out on Parks and Rec and was doing some of his early specials back then. I've been a fan of his for probably around 10 years, I guess. I used to be obsessed with his specials early in high school. I can't remember the name of the one he did in 2008, but I used to be able to quote that all the time, and I'd watch it pretty routinely. I've been a fan of his for a long time. I love his comedy. I was very disappointed when I had seen that report that came out on him, the Me Too report, and it seemed that he really he wasn't getting defensive about it. He accepted it and apologized and just kind of went away for a while. It's nice to see him back, just because I'm a fan of his, artistically. It's terrible that woman had to go through what she did, but I believe she accepted his apology. I could be wrong about that, so don't hold that against me if I'm just making something up, but I feel like I'm pretty sure that she did that. And it's nice to see him, coming back, and that's the first thing he addresses in this special, is what happened and how he was embarrassed for himself, how he was regretting of his actions and what he had done and the whole situation. And it seemed to come from a really honest and reflective place. And that was really the tone of this show. It was very honest, very reflective. He didn't talk about the sexual harassment stuff for any more than the first 5 minutes, but it was definitely different and a new perspective for him in this show than what we normally get from him. It wasn't as relying on pop culture or as silly as some of his earlier work, but it was still, I thought, very good. I think it was very aptly titled. It was extremely relevant to right now. He discussed a lot of social issues, political issues in a very level-headed, fair, and funny way. One of my favorite things about this show was how he kind of commented on some of his earlier bits, especially about some really famous bits he did on R. Kelly. And it was just kind of funny to take himself through some of his earlier works. He also talked about his funny stories he did back then on his cousin Harris in his earlier specials. His interactions with the crowd were really, really funny in this one. There was a few people he routinely picked on in the front row, and they seemed pretty cool with it, and it was used in a funny way. It wasn't anything personal. It was just smart and good comedy. There was a few funny bits in here. I don't want to get into spoiler territory for jokes, but just a few things he did where he would kind of present a situation and the crowd would react to it, and then he'd be like, oh, actually, I just made that whole thing up. And the way he executed those bits were really funny. It was filmed by Spike Jonze, directed by Spike Jonze, and I don't know where Spike Jonze has been. I don't think he's directed a film since Her. He's a great director. Everything I've ever seen from him I've loved. And he did a really, really great job with this. I loved the way he filmed the crowd in accordance with the jokes. I loved the way he filmed Aziz. I think he shot this on film, too, which was really nice. At least it looked like it. A lot of the camera angles and lighting was really well done for a comedy special. This was pretty routinely funny from start to finish. Like I said, it's very relevant. The title made a lot of sense right now. Comes on a lot of issues. And he definitely didn't come at it from all white people are bad and, some kind of woke position. But he also definitely didn't come at it I think SJWs are super cringy and stuff like that. He came at it from a very fair and balanced perspective where he's able to definitely poke fun at people from all sides of things while still acknowledging that there's a lot of racism and stuff that he has to go through. Towards the end of the show, he got a little more personal, talking about his interactions with family and stuff, and just gave his perspective on fame and fans and how he is right now. And I really appreciated a show like this. I mean, I guess he could have come out there and really ignored a lot of things going on in his life and outside of his life, but, why do that? He really came out here with a very truthful, honest, intelligent, self-aware, and funny comedy special, and I think if you're a fan of his, you'll definitely like it. Even if you're not, it's a good comedy special. It's on Netflix. It's only an hour. It's worth your time. I'd say definitely check this one out. It's very good. For the first edition of Alex Never Seen, I was deciding between watching Gladiator and watching Sunset Boulevard. I ultimately settled on Sunset Boulevard. For those who don't know, Sunset Boulevard is a film that's considered a classic. It's from the year 1950. It's directed by American great Billy Wilder. And it's often regarded as one of the best films, works of art, really, about Hollywood. The film is about a struggling writer, struggling in his career, struggling with money, and he begins a relationship, I guess you would call it, with a former silent movie star named Nora Desmond, played by Gloria Swanson, who herself, before this movie came out, was a silent movie star whose career kind of faded, so there's definitely a parallel in that regard. I could definitely see why this film was considered a classic. It was really excellently done. The screenplay was really well put together. I love the narrative. I love the characters. The juxtaposition between the characters of Norma and Betty was done in a very clever way. In terms of their relationship with Joe, the protagonist, I love the noir aspects of this. It was like perfect for the time, I'm sure. It was done really well, and it was kind of done for comedy in some spots. This movie, while not like a direct comedy, definitely had a lot of funny dialogue, a lot of funny moments, some visual comedy, not too much. I really love the characters in this thing. Joe is a really interesting protagonist. I feel like his struggle is very relatable to not just writing, but to any career. I felt like the character of Norma was very real. You know, a faded star, really, who is just trying to stay relevant. I don't think you have to be a famous person to, you know, not want your like life in essence to just fade away where nobody remembers you. And I think that's where the character of Max, her servant, plays in really well. He's a really great enabler in this. And he's sort of a dark mirror to Joe. I think he kind of highlights what Joe could become if he continues to stay with Norma. And that was done really well. The score is very good. It's very 50s. It's very dramatic. It kind of plays into some like hokier old film moments. If you've seen the movie or plan on seeing the movie and you watch it, you'll know what I mean. Some like silly classic movie stuff that you'd only get from the 50s. I love the inclusion of people like C.B. DeMille in this. It definitely made the world feel really grounded and real. Like the fact that his part was playing himself, that it really felt real in that regard. It was definitely a tragedy, if you'd call it that. Norma's character is tragic and sad, but they're able to find some humor in it that's not forced or making fun of it as much as just like natural humor. I thought the acting was all pretty good. I'm not sure of any of the actors' names besides Gloria Swanson, so sorry, but I thought the actor who played Joe was good. He was very natural. The actress who played Betty was okay. She was pretty solid. The actor who played Max was good. He was a little weird and funny. Gloria Swanson was really good. I thought she gave the best performance in this, even if she was a little exaggerated and silly at some parts in the end. I definitely see why this is a classic. It's not one of my favorites that I've ever seen. I enjoyed it. It's a very good film, and I'd say if you're like interested in watching movies that show old Hollywood, this is probably the best. I think Singing in the Rain actually does a really good job at that too, but yeah, this is a really, really good film, and I'm definitely glad I watched it, and I'd say you should check it out too. It's got good cinematography, a good narrative, and it's very, very iconic and classic. Lastly, I'll be doing an underrated film again. For this week's film, I chose the movie A Simple Plan. It's a 1998 film based on a book from the early 90s. I think it was written in 93, called The Simple Plan, and it's directed by Sam Raimi. Stars Bill Paxton, Billy Bob Thornton, and a few other people who I recognize, but I didn't know their names. The plot here is that Bill Paxton and Billy Bob Thornton are brothers, and they were out with one of Billy Bob Thornton's friends, and they discover a crashed airplane in the middle of a snowy woods, and inside of the airplane, they discover like $4.5 million in cash, and they kind of want to split it up. And right off the bat, like, you know everything you need to know about these characters just from the way they act and the cinematography. Sam Raimi does a great job here, just giving you everything you need to know right off the bat. He sets the stage of some small, desolate Minnesota cold town, very Fargo-esque in that regard. Snowy all the time. The acting here is really good. Bill Paxton's very good. Billy Bob Thornton, though, he absolutely steals the show. He's such a great actor. He's such a chameleon. He can play so many different kinds of roles. You feel so sympathetic for him in this film. He he's the heart of this film. He gives a really, really great and excellent performance. Like I said, the cinematography is excellent. The camera's always moving. It's one of those films where the camera really feels like its own character. And honestly, this movie, for a movie of this kind, would normally, I feel like, be very plot dominant. And while the plot is certainly extremely relevant, this film does not shy away from good character dynamics and strong emotional arcs. Like I said, I love the interaction between Paxton and Billy Bob Thornton. And Billy Bob Thornton really did steal the show. It was very well structured. The tension continues to build and build and build through until a really, really excellent climax where you don't really even know what's going on. You think you know, and it's probably right, but it could really be going anyway. And the resolution was, I think, pretty interesting. I don't think you see many films with a resolution of this sort. And it's done really well. The script is really well written. It's really tight and smart script. Everything adds up. Yeah, it's just, there aren't too many Sam Raimi-esque moments in terms of, like, effects, but there's one specific, very, very Sam Raimi moment where someone gets shot, and you'll know exactly what I'm talking about if you watch it. It's really great, but it's definitely Sam Raimi-esque in the fact that he's able to film anything, and in this film, he films paranoia and tension so well. He creates, like, such iconic performances, and he gets so much heart into his films. I don't know what he does, but he gets the best out of actors. He really does. And he's, like I said, he's great at filming tension. He's great at filming paranoia. There's one or two Sam Raimi-esque moments in here, but there's just the mark of a really good filmmaker on here. And it's a good script, good filmmaking, good writing. Oh, I forgot to mention Danny Elfman scored this film. I'm a fan of Danny Elfman's. His Spider-Man theme is one of my all-time favorites, and he gives a really good score here. I really enjoyed it. It fit the tension and the scenes very well. I'd say definitely check this one out. It's super underrated. It's only got like 10 or 15,000 people logging it on Letterboxd. Very well titled. The Simple Plan is a good title. After revisiting this film and just like giving my thoughts on it again, I kind of want to read the book. I've never read it before. I'm definitely interested in reading it. I'd say definitely check this one out. It's great. It's Sam Raimi doing what he does best. It's good acting. It's enjoyable. It's engaging. I'd say this underrated film for sure. You should definitely check it out. That's it for the show this week. I'll be back next week for sure with definitely some more new releases. There's some stuff coming out this weekend I definitely want to see. I really want to see The Farewell. I'm kind of interested in seeing Stuber. I know it looks kind of silly, but it kind of looks funny. I'm a big fan of Kumail Nanjiani. I'm kind of interested in seeing The Crawl because Sam Raimi is a producer on that. I'm also interested in seeing The Art of Self-Defense. I've heard it got really good reviews, so I'd like to see all four of those by the next show. I can't promise that I will, but that's definitely my goal. I'll definitely be back with at least 2 or 3 new releases. Maybe another Alex Never Seen, maybe another Underrated. We'll see how the week progresses. As always, it's just my opinion. If you don't like it, that's great. That's the whole point of this. Different opinions, different thoughts. Let me know if you disagree with anything I said here. Like always, follow me on Twitter @_Cinema Corner. Follow me on Letterboxd, ASF5716. I'll see you next week. Good night, film lovers.